Hello. Welcome to my channel. My name is Jhona. This is Jhona OhMGee. Today we will be going over the Southern Scandal, the Murdaugh murders, seen on Netflix. Okay, so let's get right on into it. So episode 1 was Where the F is Mallory? So I know most of y'all have heard about this scandal by now, but it's just now really getting on my radar. So I thought, let's watch it, let's review it. So on episode 1, we discovered that in the span of about 6 years, there have been 5 murders tied to this Murdaugh family, which they are a small family. Well, no, kind of large family, I guess, well-off family in South Carolina, in the low country, where they call it. So this family owns a law firm that has been passed down from like generations to generations. So they are well known throughout the city, well known throughout the county. Name holds a lot of weight. Murdaugh. So we start this episode off. There are 3 friends, Mallory, Morgan, and Miley, and they're dating 3 boys, Anthony, Connor, and Paul Murdaugh. So Paul, of course, is major part of this story. He's the son of the family. Oh, and some people describe this Murdaugh family as like, because they work in a law firm, or they sometimes think that they're above the law, which that is going to play a factor later for sure. So Paul, this like 16, 15, 14-year-old boy, already a drunk, already from the rip. And honestly, that's some pretty common white boy-ish. I went to a PWI, so drunk white boys, it's a thing. So the family always looked the other way because, hell, they were drinking too with him. Like, the mom was drinking, dad was drinking. We later found out he was on drugs, or anyway. So they looked the other way about Paul's excessive drinking at his age. So one day they were going to, the 3 couples were going to this oyster roast party. Never heard of such. Heard of crawfish boil. But not an oyster roast, but I guess they're around like a river and a lake, so I guess that's a common thing. Never heard of it. So they decide they want to take the boat. Paul has a boat. He's a part of this family, so he wants to take the boat. So they're driving the boat, and they already have been drinking heavily. Like he got the funnel out. Like they're already throwing back beers left and right before they even got to the party. Okay, so of course when they got to the party, it increased. Then as they're coming back from the boat, like no one really wanted to take the boat back. It was very late. It was cold. They also didn't want to tell Paul no either. So I guess you can't say no to Paul because who his family is. Everybody's like scared. Then Paul stops at a bar on the way back from the boat, drinking more. So hop back in the boat, driving. He gets to arguing with his girlfriend, Morgan. Chaos happens. And he pushes the boat in high gear. It crashed into a bridge. And then Mallory fell off the boat. And they were not able to find. I don't know if they crashed. Yeah. They crashed into like a bridge on the river, and then some rocks like under the bridge. So everybody got injured, some form of injury. Mallory fell off the boat, but she never made it out. So Paul lied to everybody from the rip. I'm like, as soon as he got off the boat, he was going around telling people, yeah, Connor was the driver. I was like, the fact that he's already doing damage control is like ridiculous. But I guess if you are a son of a lawyer, like that's immediately what your mind goes to. I was like, dang, like they still trying to find Mallory out in the river. You already lying, telling people that Connor was driving the boat. Boy, oh my goodness. So his dad shows up to the hospital, Alec Murdaugh, so we learn. And I think his granddad, and they all lawyers, so of course they are instant damage control. I think they knew that Paul was the driver, so like they instantly go into damage control. They talking to the kids, they whispering in people's ear, talking to the family, like, you know, Connor was the driver, like, don't worry about it, I'm gonna take care of y'all, I'm gonna be your representative, don't worry about it, I'll handle everything. I'm like, very, it's just very insensitive to the situation. Like, they still haven't found this girl body. You know what I mean? So they end up finding Mallory's body. It's like a week later at this point. Of course, she didn't make it. Rest in peace, Mallory. And then her parents are like, then no one even called her parents to let her know that Mallory was missing. Like, the parents had to get phone calls from the other kids or other parents of the kids. Like, but her parents, they want justice. They don't want this Murdaugh family covering up anything about what happened that night. Like, they want justice, so they hired lawyers. So, we then learned, after her parents hired a lawyer, that these investigators that were on the scene have deep connections to these Murdaugh child. It's like, I mean, this is like South Carolina, y'all. Like, what is going on? Like, who are these people? Honestly, like, do they have political ties? Like, how heavy is their influence? I really need to know. So then, y'all, we learned that like a bunch of judges and like circuit people, prosecutors, whoever, end up all recusing themselves from this case because of their ties to the Murdaugh. And I'm like, y'all, for real, like, for real, who are these people? Like, this is South Carolina. Like, I didn't even think big wigs existed in South Carolina. Like, are they the Kennedys? Like, what is going on here? And of course, Paul, so they take this to investigation, take this hopefully to trial, but Paul ended up pleading not guilty, and I'm not sure based off what exactly. So Paul, we learned, I think this is in episode 2 at this point, we learned that Paul is still getting in trouble with the law. Like, he's speeding, got pulled over, he's still messing up. Like, at this point, Mallory has been gone for 2 years now, I think, but the trial is still, they haven't won the trial yet. We learned that Buster, who is Paul's oldest brother, the other Murdaugh son, ended up getting expelled from, like, I think the University of South Carolina for plagiarism. So there's just really a lot going on with this family. Like, then we learned some bills were unpaid. Like, there was just a lot of added stress on this family. But anyway, so the year is 2021, which I didn't realize how recent this was. I was like, oh my goodness, this happened like yesterday. Like, oh my gosh. So the year is 2021, and we hear multiple gunshots. And I think I counted like 4, then it was a pause, and then like 2 more. And then there was a 911 call from the father, Alec Murdaugh, and he says his wife and child had been shot badly. I'm like, oh my God. First Mallory, now the wife and the child. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, so we learned that Paul and Maggie were murdered, child. I'm like, what is going on? Like, who killed these people? Who want these people dead? I mean, I know people probably had some animosity toward Paul, but like, to want them dead? And where does Maggie fit in? The mom. How does she play into this? Like, did anyone else hear that when Alec first made that first 911 call, he was like running? I was like, child, where are you going? Where are you running to? You should be like down there by the bodies, like trying to see if they're still alive. Like, I don't know, something like, did y'all hear that footsteps? Was it just me on that first 911 call? Anyway, so we learned that there are 2 guns that are present here, y'all. Paul was shot with a shotgun, and then the mom, Maggie, was shot with like an AR-57, 61. I can't remember. And then it turns out Murdaugh's own that type of gun, but of course police didn't confiscate anything. I didn't even question them. I'm like, oh, here we go. Oh. So at this point, I'm like, what is the motive here? Like, what is really going on? And Mr. Alex, like, you didn't hear anything. So he said he has an alibi. He said he was visiting his sick parents around the time that the murders happened, and he came back on and found their bodies. But I'm like, there ain't no footprints, fingerprints. I mean, question the dogs at this point. Like, what is going on? Like, nothing? You didn't see a thing? So, child, then they flash back to 2018. Then 2015, and all these 911 calls are coming through left and right. They all mention Murdaughs. I'm like, yo, what is happening? Who are these people? Like, how are they getting away with all this stuff? So then they introduced another murder, y'all. Stephen Smith in 2015. And baby, here we have, now on the murder scene, Buster Murdaugh, the oldest son. His name pop ups in the report for the murder in 2015. Now, initial ruling was made, and they said that it was a motor vehicle accident, which I didn't understand how they made that initial report, because there was no windshield busted. I mean, did he even crash? It looked like his car was just on the side of the road. Like, so it didn't seem like he had hit anything. His windshield wasn't out. His back window wasn't out. The way that his body was positioned on the ground, like, how can y'all explain how he was in the middle of the road? Motor vehicle accident. How? Tell me what conclusion, y'all. How did y'all get to that conclusion? How? So rumors were circling around that Steven and Buster had something going on, had a relationship of some sort, allegedly. So Steven was was a gay boy. Being gay in these small town and with that family, I'm sure it's probably like a no-go. So my assumption is Buster probably wasn't accepted in his family for being gay, or they probably didn't even know he was being gay, but like, feel like he lashed out at Steven. I don't know. This is all alleged, but my mind is blown. This is too much. So they said that Buster's name was mentioned so many times within this Steven Smith murder, but no one ever interviewed Buster or any of the Murdaughs. What? Nobody ever said anything to Buster or the Murdaughs? Like, are y'all that scared of these people? Like, a boy is dead. What? You don't investigate anybody? At least interview him to get him off your radar. But the fact that y'all don't even interview them is too much with this family, y'all. It's too much. Like, I'm getting a headache. Like, how are they getting away with all of this stuff? Like, when it's so obvious, all signs are pointing to the common denominator here, which are the Murdaughs. Like, what? Okay, so we move on to Miss Gloria. She's the housekeeper of the Murdaughs that I thought Paul loved. It's like, okay, so then we hear a 911 call from Maggie, the mom, and Paul. Like, I don't know. I'm like, are they on three-way? Anyway, so Paul's saying that Gloria fell down the stairs, or there's some like brick stairs, and she hit her head. And I'm like, are the 911 operators not tired of taking calls from these Murdaughs? Like, sheesh. Okay, so we learned that Gloria died from her head injuries. But child, I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if Alex did it. At this point, I'm like, it's Alex. It's the dad. Because she obviously just knows too much about the family anyway. She's there 24/7, you know. So all signs point to me, they killed this lady. I don't know why yet. That had something to do with this lady. Like, she just didn't fall out of nowhere. Like, I think somebody pushed her. So Alex was saying that, yeah, Gloria told me that she got tripped up over the dogs. And then we learned later that Alex wasn't even there. So how did Gloria tell you that, sir? Huh? How'd she tell you that? You weren't even there. Here we go again, another cover up. And I'm like, how can y'all cover up so many murders? And like, how are you not on the people's radar? Like, are they that much in... Like, what do the Murdaughs have on these, like, investigators? It's just too much for me. And y'all wonder why some black folks side-eye the police. Like, look at this. They not even questioning these people. Okay, child, so we fast forward. Then some little random... Oh, my God. This was so crazy to me. So crazy. So we get another 911 call, and it's from Alex. And Alex is saying, he's on the 911 saying he's been shot in the head. He was trying to change a tire, and somebody came and shot him in the head. Y'all, this is the craziest mess ever. Like, this is crazy. So then we learn, like, his lawyer comes out, or somebody comes out and make a statement that says that Alex really wanted to end his life. Like, he couldn't cope with the fact that his son and his wife are dead, so he wanted to end his life. So he got somebody that he knew, local drug dealer, somebody that he knew, to come and shoot him in the head. And he wanted to do this so he could benefit his last son, the Buster. Even saying it out loud, I'm like, huh? What? I feel silly saying it out loud. So, of course, they investigate a little further, and then they discover some checks that Alex wrote to Cousin Eddie, who was the drug dealer at this time. And so, of course, they say that he's trying to buy more drugs. But the time stamp on these checks, like there were a couple days right before the murder of Maggie and Paul, and a couple checks dated right after the murder of Maggie and Paul. So what is going on? Like, piecing it together, right? All eyes point to you, Alex Murdaugh. Like, this is ridiculous. Then we learned about some new charges about Alex for false insurance claim. He said he was going to sue himself so he can get some insurance money, since his dogs were the one that tripped over their housekeeper, and then he's going to give that money to Gloria's sons, which never happened. I mean, did y'all think that was going to happen? Please. He was going to sue himself and pocket that money. I think he got like $4.5 million off that insurance claim, and it all went to him. Oh, poor him. Like, come on now. Okay. So now it's getting juicy. So apparently they found some evidence that puts Alec, Father Murdaugh, at the scene of the double homicide of his wife and son. So you remember Alec said that his alibi, that he was visiting his sick parents because they were so ill. Well, child, they did some tests of some fluid on his shirt. Now, granted, y'all, we are years later. Like, this is like 2 or 3 years, I think, after the double homicide. I'm like, what? So they just now testing his shirt, and then boom, places him at the scene of the house when the murders were taking place. Like, don't you just love modern technology? I know I do. Okay. So then they found a video of Paul's phone, and they can hear Alex's voice in the background. Can't see him or nothing, but they hear his voice. But I'm like, why are y'all just now checking this years later? Like, I don't understand the delay here. I really don't. All right, so the year is 2022, literally just last year, y'all, in July. So he is officially facing charges for the murder of his wife and his son. And I'm like, y'all, there are some sick people in this world. Like, please be careful. Like, because how could you... Yeah. And I'm just like, how do they have all these unsolved crimes and not, like, having conducted a proper investigation? We got Stephen, Miss Gloria, Mallory, Maggie, Paul, like 5 murders. Like, all of these lawsuits are still ongoing, y'all. You got the wrongful death lawsuit with Mallory, where Paul was I guess they got halted because Paul was killed. And then you have the cause of death lawsuit. And I guess no one wants to further investigate the death of Stephen, which is sad. Y'all. And then now we have Maggie and Paul, and child, the year is 2023 now. And Alex Murdaugh, the father, was convicted of killing his wife and son. And y'all, the judge said, it's over for you, buddy. You are never getting out of jail. But y'all, how can a man do that? Like, how could you shoot your son with a shotgun to the chest? Meaning you had to be like looking at him in his face. I mean, my goodness. So the prosecutors were argued that he killed his family based off a way to distract from the financial crimes and the fraud that he was about to face. But I'm like, Alex, come on now. Let's think about this for a second. If that is true, how do you think that was gonna work out? Like, all signs still pointing back to you, buddy. You killed your wife and your child. Like you don't think that all roads would make it back to you some kind of way? And you really messed up when you tried to do that fake suicide. Anyway, y'all, Alex Murdaugh ain't never getting out of jail. One, for killing his wife, killing his son, and all the financial crimes stacked up against him. He is under the jail. It's over with for it, buddy. Y'all, please leave in the comments down below if there's anything that I missed throughout this whole little series. Any updates on the other trials, like Miss Gloria. Any word on the trial about Stephen? Like, Buster's still out there. We can still go off the Buster. Like, what is going to happen with that scenario? Like, oh, I'm anxious. But thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you check me back next week. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. See you down in the comments. Bye.